For over 20 years, co-directors Karen O'Connor, Miri Navasky, and Maeve O'Boyle have made character-driven documentary films that explore complex social issues ranging from transgender kids to global warming. But they have never tackled a biographic film until now. And no pressure based on their chosen subject, but it just happens to be the living legend, the one and only Joan Baez, who has graciously joined us here today, first time ever at South by Southwest. They are here for the premiere of their new film entitled Joan Baez, I Am a Noise. And we are honored to have them all with us in the studio today. Welcome, ladies.
Thank you very much.
First time at South by Southwest.
That's correct.
I have to mention this first and foremost. My father, who's visiting, he just turned 75. 2 days ago, he's like, all right, tell me who you're interviewing. I give him a list of 60 people, all these famous celebrities, right? All these actors and musicians. I get to Joan Baez, my father, South Asian man, nonplussed. Joan Baez? My father came here in 1966, thanks to the 1965 Immigration Nationality Act. He was 18 years old. Growing up, the singers that he kept mentioning, the voice that really influenced him, Joan Baez, if we had a Joan Baez. So I also think low-key he had a crush on you.
Okay. I hope so.
Yeah. But with that, I was just sitting there thinking about this, with this amazing life you had, the weight and the responsibility of the pressure, of the fame, the recognition. At this stage of your life, why do you decide to reveal so much in this documentary?
I guess I felt it was time, and I wanted to leave an honest legacy, and my family was gone. So, you know, it gets very personal in the film, and I would not have been able to do that if they were still here. So.
And Miri, you all, you know, your team here, transgender kids, incarceration, global warming. Let's do a biography for the first time. Oh yeah, let's just call up Joan Baez. How did it come about?
Well, I guess it was a long process to decide to do it. Karen has been friends with Joan for about, I don't know,
30 some years.
30 some years. So I had met Joan a while ago through Karen. And we had been back and forth about thinking about doing something with her. She's funny. She has a history. She's got a lot of stuff going on.
You've done some things.
She's done some things, yeah. Exactly. It was over a long period of time. It wasn't until actually she decided to stop touring. We started, it was the process of her deciding, and that's when we started to think about seriously doing a film. And then once that decision was made, we were in. We just thought, here's someone facing the end of a career, and she was, you know, heading up there in age-wise, and
crushing it at 81? Are you kidding me? I saw that 82. Oh, my bad. You got to flex. Every year you got to flex after 80. But I saw the opening scene where you're like, oh, I'm going to do my workout. I'm like, you got on the treadmill, and I'm 42. I get on the treadmill. I do like a 15-minute jog. She's sitting there like, you were like doing side steps and dancing. I was like, all right, I got to up my game. Yeah. So you're looking fantastic and crushing it at 82. But, you know, Maeve, what people don't realize when it comes to documentary films, you see the end product, 90 minutes. It takes a long time. How long did you spend with Joan?
Well, I mean, Karen and Miri began initially a long time ago now, back in, you know, I did a shoot or two in about 2013 or so.
2013?
Yeah, right? 2014?
Just
one shoot, but then in earnest, once Joan decided she was going to do her final tour, I think we all jumped on around 2017 or so. So, you know, it was definitely...
So 6-year journey?
Absolutely.
Wow.
Yeah. No, so it was.
So you had to kind of like each other to spend 6 years.
We also didn't know she was going to be there was going to be such revealing. We didn't know how much you were going to open up to us, right?
Neither did I.
Right.
And it's in the documentary. And speaking about a revelation, there's a great quote in the documentary by Marquez, an up-and-coming writer you might all hear about. He writes, "Everyone has 3 lives: the public, the private, and the secret." Profound quote. And you get to see the public and the private and the secret of Joan. And Karen, how are you able to elicit the secret from a person who's so public, but as we see in the documentary, we learn things that most people did not know about?
I think the friendship was a starting point for that, the kind of inherent trust that we had because of the history that Joan had with all of us, really. And then Joan's readiness at this point in her life to I think, kind of reckon with the past in a way in order to move ahead with her life at this point in her life. So I think we always knew it was going to be, ideally, this weaving of past and present. And so the Marquez quote had particular resonance in all sorts of ways because of not only that quote, but the style.
The way you tell the stories.
The way we tell.
And in telling the story, speaking about secrets, and what I didn't know, is you're very open in the documentary about having almost crippling panic attacks and anxiety. And I'm watching this, I'm like, Joan Baez? Panic attacks throughout the height of her career. And at the same time, when you're a kid, you're like, I like being the center of attention.
Yeah, you're right. Being the center of attention, when I could finally get the attention from my school friends, I mean, I would go to any extent to do that. And I probably had anxiety around that too. So maybe they're all meshed together. But the anxiety attacks and that were crippling. And then, there was the guitar in front of me. And often when I see that old footage, my hair was covering me like that, and the guitar was right there, and I somehow protected myself from whatever might be terrifying me.
But we were talking right before we started, I shared with you that I have an anxiety disorder, OCD, that I got from my father. And when people see someone who's public, they're like, wait, you?
Yeah.
And especially right now with kids, based on the pandemic, so many people are suffering. And I was just telling you that how it's so important to share that, because people feel like they're not alone. What's been the response to people? Instead of them mocking you, that's the fear, right? They'll mock me, they'll make fun of me. Instead, we see that people are like, wow, I'm not alone.
Because everybody's got something
Right.
that they haven't been able to talk about, or that they didn't remember, and they'd be willing to go, take the next step, try and see what's making the panic attacks happen. Just opens, I didn't know this. We wanted that. I wanted that in one form or another. It's much stronger than I could have imagined, the reaction to it. And people just saying, it changed my life. Or, a 70-year-old woman grasping my hands. She couldn't even explain what it was that she wanted to talk about. Her daughter said she's been sitting on this stuff her whole life. So that something in there was really, really deep. And so those have surprised me and made me very happy, that we're making a dent in that way.
Because I think people see, like, if Joan Baez suffers but can still live such a full life, maybe there's hope for me. And if she still gets the love, maybe they'll love me too. Speaking about people who need love, I was surprised to hear you were talking about when you were a kid, you were picked on for being a dark-skinned Mexican.
Yep, just about the same color.
There you go. I think we call it, this is caramel mocha, right? This is lovely caramel mocha. And we don't need a tan, it just happens naturally. Being that Mexican kid at that time, before there was representation.
Right.
How did that impact you? Because we all find out at school where our place is in the American hierarchy. And you got picked on at school. You're not like us, Joan, you're the Mexican.
Yeah, well, the problem with it is I began to believe that. My image of myself, because where I lived, the Mexicans were mostly people who came across the border to pick oranges and make money and then go back. And so they weren't exactly excelling at school. Some of them just got to school just because they had to, for the record. And so it wasn't until somebody figured out it was my name, Baez, that we changed schools all the time. Southern California, they looked at her, she's a Mexican, we'll put her in the slow classes. And it wasn't until somebody caught on that I had a good mind up there and put me in an advanced class, and then I started to wake up, started to enjoy myself.
And she got the last word and the last laugh and the last song and the last noise. They put you in the slow class if they could see you now. Drag off the cigarette. What many people know you for is your music and the folk music, the guitar, the beautiful voice, and the lyrics. There's a social consciousness in them, especially in the time that you wrote, the 60s, when my father came as a young student during the Civil Rights Movement. And you say in the movie, social consciousness was born in me before the voice developed. How was that seed planted?
Well, my family were pacifists. Became pacifist, became Quaker officially when I was about 8. So I heard the dialogue about violence, nonviolence, about nation versus human beings, etc., from that age on. And so and they were also, I remember my first demonstration was with my dad and my mom. And we went to, actually, it was to protest against bomb shelters because we were saying they didn't do any good because you didn't want the bombs in the first place. So it's, you know.
Which seems like common sense, I would say.
There we go, there you
no
go.
bombs, you don't need the shelters.
There you go. So we were fighting for no bombs. And my father got water balloons dropped on his head. I mean, it was the beginning of a lifelong activism, and I felt very comfortable and at home with that.
And in the documentary, you were mentioning the archival footage that you found, right? Joan has walked and marched with MLK. She knew this up-and-coming singer by the name of Bob Dylan. And how was it like when you, Karen, I'll go to you with this, when you found this archival footage that maps this emerging voice, how are we all able to, like, how did that change your trajectory of what this documentary could be and should be?
It cracked it open. And it changed everything for Miri, Maeve, and myself and how to think about the film. Originally, I think we thought the last tour would be
Which would be good enough.
Would be good enough, and a narrative anchor, a contemporary strand. But once we cracked open the archive, we realized, oh, the past will inform the present, and the present will be informed by the past, and that we had Joan's family, her father and mother, saved everything. So her father had these extraordinary home movies. Her mother saved every letter. Joan's original artwork. We heard tapes from 21 years old on her way to the march to Montgomery.
Wow.
So that we
Gold mine.
Gold mine. And we realized we could tell it from Joan's perspective at the time, as well as her insight on it now, so that you could weave the past and the present in a way that we thought, this could be a...
I've got something here, at least for 90 minutes.
And then Maeve with her editing. Yeah, all of us. Maeve is also not only director but an editor, so we all realized what we could do in terms of the narrative arc of the film with the archive as well.
Yeah, because I think it was really interesting the way, because the past was so immersive and it was so immediate, there wasn't that feeling of a remove or hindsight. It felt like actually you were in there. You were almost on the train with Joan as she was traveling to Montgomery. So the idea of that happening and the past informing the present informing the past in that kind of immersive way, just like a visual memoir, a journey, almost an immersive journey through.
Well, which also helps with the narrative arc of this life as it emerges. And, you know, you mentioned parents. And you know, we're at that age, I'm at that age right now, where, you know, you see your parents, birth and death are hitting at you in waves, right? And you think about all the good that your parents have done and all, you know, some of the therapy sessions they've given you as well. But you are a product of your parents and your siblings. Your father was a brilliant, one of the creators of the modern X-ray, right? Yeah. And he helped instill with you the seed that you talk about. But your father is also a source of pain. And so in the movie you talk about of the abuse and the friction that's caused between you and your father and also you and your sister. You know, looking in hindsight now, what is your view of your father and his impact on you?
Mostly it's all of my life, and my my mother had no brain for science, so we never gave him credit for what he did do. No, it just didn't really register with us. And when I look now, I pretty much see the good in my father, that I loved my father, and that he loved, you know, we girls, and the other, it's a fact to me, and I wrestle with it sometimes, you know, thinking, did that dark side really exist? And I believe it did. And then at some point, you have to say it's forgiven.
Which is very difficult.
It can be.
Yeah.
I had some really intelligent Buddhists say you forgive a little bit at a time. You do what you can do.
If you got 82 years worth of mileage, little breadcrumbs.
Yeah.
But go ahead.
I was just going to say also, I mean, her archive was incredible. And one of the things I think was her father documented everything. And so he was filming them all the time. He was recording audio tapes after audio tapes. He took them traveling all over the world. So a lot of, I don't know if you think this is true, but her social conscious, the empathy in her, her
From an early age, and you have the notebooks.
Very
You're-
young.
You have your notebooks that you wrote this all down.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And that in part was due to your dad, I would say.
Oh, yeah. I mean, all of us remember when we were coming back from Iraq. So we were a little bit shredded and getting a hotel in either England or France, I don't remember. But there was an East Indian sitting in the same waiting room as us, waiting to go to the desk to get a room. And they kept leaving him out. And my father said something to them, and then we all left. He took us to find someplace else.
Good for him.
Yeah.
Good for him. You know, we were talking right before we started filming, and Jen, our producer, came in and said, you hung up your guitar. Like, you didn't just retire, you literally hung it up.
I did,
I mean, so it's like definitive. But there, and you were telling me, like, you feel good about it. And so letting go of literally the instrument
Yeah.
that so many, like my father recognizes you by, right? How do you get to that place where you can let go with grace and peace?
Well, I once asked a vocal coach when I was in my 30s, how will I know when it's time to quit? He said, your voice will tell you. And so the real answer to that is that the voice became such a struggle, I mentioned it in the film, to keep up to something that I wanted to hear, that after a while, I didn't want to do that anymore. It's exhausting, and it wasn't coming out the way I wanted it to, in spite of all that work. And so all of a sudden, it was, oh, there's that option. I can just, and it took a bunch of false starts. I think that this is going to be it, and then it wasn't, and it wasn't. And then one day, I just said to my manager, okay, how do we plan this thing? And it was a 3-year planning, what a last concert's going to be, and so on. And then people didn't believe it, because so many people stop a career and they start it up again, and they say, oh, yeah.
I'm retiring.
Yeah, so-
Here's the comeback.
exactly.
Yeah.
And I said, I really don't think so. And it's been better than that. I don't have any yearning to be out there. My fingers have gone to spaghetti. I couldn't play the guitar really right now if I wanted to. Well, no, it takes.
Even in the movie, when you're like, oh, my voice is struggling, I'm like, she's crushing it. She's pretty damn good. Karen, you've been friends with Joan for 30 plus years.
Yeah.
Seeing her in private, seeing her on the stage, the impact, the legacy of the noise that is Joan Baez, right? Your take as a friend and as an admirer.
I think we've come close to capturing what we all set out to do in the film, I hope. I think we, because of all the elements we had, because of Joan's willingness to kind of take an unflinching look at her life, the triumphs, the darkness, all of it, and then the archive, all of these elements, I think our hope was to do a film that was complicated, funny, honest. And I think we all feel we got as close as we'd hoped to, given how tough it is to do it all. I feel like we've come close to capturing the woman herself. I think.
You know, it's a question, and I hope you don't mind indulging me. It's one we ask our elders, right? Because elders have the mileage, they have the scars.
You're talking about Miri, right?
Yeah, really?
Yeah. And they have the wisdom, and so your life is one of creations. And so when you look back on so many creations, if you don't mind me asking, of all your creations, which one is the one that gives you the most pride?
Well, there are points all along the way where I could say, oh, I was a part of that. I mean, it was political and musical. There are places that come to mind as this ultimate time in a concert or a concert hall. I mean, Turkey, 25,000 people doing the wave as the sun went down over the ruins in back of me. It's just sort of spectacular moments. And then, of course, there's King and the March on Washington, and moments with Dylan in the early days. They were all peaks.
It's a life of peaks. Thank you, Joan Baez. Your voice, your gift, your guitar, your social activism, everything that you did throughout your career. I'm here as a 42-year-old in the 21st century. I look upon your career as a person, as an artist who used whatever talents God gave, not just to create beautiful music, but to push the ball just a bit forward, so that next Mexican kid won't be put in the slow lane, but might be the next Joan Baez. I appreciate it. I appreciate all of you for capturing her voice and that noise This is a fantastic moment, and my dad is very impressed.
You give my love to your dad.
I will.
Okay.
Joan Baez, I Am a Noise. The documentary premieres this evening, folks, at the Zach Theater at 8:15 p.m. And there will be an additional screening on Monday, March 13th at 5:45 p.m. at the Stateside Theater. I'm your host, Wajahat Ali. Thank you for watching.